Hello and welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging within the construction industry. The show is brought to you in partnership with PlaceEngage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Shane Curran, Managing Director of Interiors at BHA Construction. Shane, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Carol. Delighted to be on today's show.
We're delighted you were able to join us because I know that BHA, the team at BHA, have a number of live construction sites at the moment, and I want to talk to you about a few of them. But maybe for anybody who's not familiar, you might just give us a quick overview. BHA Construction, what do you do and what kind of projects are you involved in?
Yeah, thanks, Carol. BHA is a family-owned business. 40 years of history delivering a wide range of projects across different sectors. Currently, we have about 15 live sites on. That's predominantly made up of residential developments. So we have a wide geographic area. We're working from anywhere from Dublin down as far as Waterford. Currently working in 7 different counties. So a good footprint right now.
Okay, and maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the residential projects. 15 live sites, that's a lot. And so of the residential, what size schemes would be looking at?
Look, I probably the bottom end, the smaller end of things will be 25 sites or 25 units up. Our largest is 125, so it's a real mixed bag. Split between housing, and also we have a number of apartment buildings on our books at the minute. I suppose in addition to the residential, we do have commercial construction. We have school buildings at the minute, a fit out division which I head up, and also a very successful fireproofing business which is brought into retrofit fire deficiencies in buildings around Ireland.
Very good. And say of the apartments, just because your geographical spread, I know you're kind of basically mainly kind of east and southeast. Have you any apartments outside of Dublin?
No, it's at the minute it's all Dublin. So Harold's Cross, we have 2 live sites there, with a further one coming down the line in the new year. So they're 35 apartments each, and each block, 2 separate clients. But yeah, our apartment building for us is predominantly Dublin based.
Okay, and I mean, just earlier today, our Taoiseach said what we have all been kind of whispering about in the last nearly a year, but you know that he describes dark clouds on the horizon. So he, for the first time, has expressed the very real likelihood that Ireland will go into technical recession over the next 12 months. Now, given that, given your pipeline of work at the moment, and that, BHA acts as a developer and contractor for the majority of those, what's your sentiment on the market ahead? How are you finding things at the moment, and what are your expectations?
I suppose in the housing market, we haven't seen much of a tail off. We're lucky enough, the owners of BHA back in the last crash purchased a lot of land banks around various regional towns and in Dublin. So we've been working through those. Most of our sites are an exit towards housing authorities. We have a pipeline on the housing side of things coming up to 3 years ahead of ourselves, and we're aggressively still purchasing land with a view to selling with an exit to social housing. Probably on the fit outside, we have noticed in the last probably 8 months that there has been a lot of, in the commercial office spaces, has tapered off a lot. Probably felt pinch a bit sooner than some of the other sectors. But I think the nature of BHA, we have a number of verticals, as we just touched on earlier. We feel that although there may be a slowdown, that we're able to divert some of our talent into the busier areas, let it be residential. We're also looking at, to insulate ourselves somewhat, we're looking at opportunities with some of our long existing clients to spread their wings and look a bit further afield in Ireland. Look, by all means, we would always be cautious. We've been through a number of these cycles now, so we've, with the experience that we make sure that we're erring on the side of caution. We think that we have a model that will, still see us in good stead, and especially with working through our own developments, that be in an okay place. Although the construction market will probably take a slowdown in the coming 12 to 24 months.
Shane, there's a lot of what you said there, and I want to unpack some of it a little, just because I know when we speak to particularly main contractors, we know where the interest is afterwards based on the feedback I get, and that feedback is usually not very complimentary to me. It's normally questions saying, why did you not ask this? So I know where the natural curiosity lies, and I think the construction industry historically has not been very good at sharing information. So I think there are relationships and people share within their known and trusted relationships, but actually as an industry, we haven't been very good at sharing information. And actually it's one of the reasons for this radio show and podcast is that actually we want to maybe surface some of the things that people are curious about. And one of them is the ever evolving model of delivering particularly social housing, whether through a local authority or an approved housing body. And I've heard arguments for which is better. So I'd be interested to hear your view on that. But just in terms of the business model around that, because it helps when you're developing, that you have your buyer not just in mind, but signed up. So you might just talk us a little bit about maybe the transition of the company to delivering social housing and how that business model really has changed over the last number of years.
Yeah, I suppose with a long history like ours, we've seen different models, we've done different things. We were involved back a number of years ago in a lot more speculative builds. We have one currently, which it's all sold out, 125 units. But it's, as you say, when you have an end in mind, when you start with the end in mind, it gives an awful lot more certainty than going out to that market. And right now, I think our model fits that that kind of lower cost model, delivery model. So it is a learning process that by working with the various county councils and housing bodies, that we know what they want and they know what we can deliver. And over time, we've seen ourselves work more in a kind of a partnership, which has led to a better product being delivered for the end user. And that's really the important thing with these social housing deliveries,
It's very true, and we will come back to that because before we started recording, you were talking about your understanding that this is not just about units you're delivering, this is about creating places. So I definitely want to talk about that and the whole concept of social value, how it's evolving in Ireland. But maybe first, just before we leave the topic of actually delivering social housing, particularly at scale, which you guys are doing, how has that been impacted by interest rate changes over the last kind of 18 months?
Look, obviously it's great, as well as interest rates and material increases, has created a lot of challenges for us. And we've tried to, we tried to start with a price and then end with that price. It's not always been possible. I think anybody in the market understands that there's been considerable cost impacts with finance and the cost of building. So it's been, managed by the owners of BHA and the commercial teams as best we can. It's something that we've done an awful lot of, looked further afield probably for some of our funding where possible, and luckily that we have a ready supply of funds ready to go for right opportunities, and that's the positive where we think coming into the near future.
Well, on that point, what can you tell us about your pipeline, say, over the next 2 years?
In it, we have 8 sites in planning, various stages of planning, some gone to Port Penala. We're currently looking, the guys are aggressively looking for land in various areas. We've found that recently we've kind of gone back into a tendering. We have, a percentage of our business that we're going to deliver through tendering. We've seen opportunities where some people couldn't get the numbers to stack, where we actually come in and rather than go into a contractor based on a tendering model. We've actually came in as partners, that we were able to kind of self-fund some of those opportunities, which is, seeing us kind of grow. And our growth over the last number of years as a company has been quite impressive. We are growing on average about 20% year on year. So yeah, that's the benefit of what we're offering right now.
Shane, it hasn't gone unnoticed that you have twice used the phrase you're aggressively looking for sites, aggressively looking for land. And I suppose I'm very conscious when you talk about the history of the company over 4 decades, having gone through its cycles. And it sounds to me maybe played the last cycle very smartly in terms of buying up regional land banks, being able to develop them. And in the vein of you aggressively looking to buy sites and searching for those, only in the last number of months we've started to see an increase in people emailing us, and we're certainly not involved in land transactions, but we've started to get emails saying, we have land that we cannot develop, do you know anybody who might be interested? And what's really interesting is that land is always up or down the west coast. So you're literally talking from Kerry up to Donegal. It is never in the Midlands. It is absolutely never in the southeast. So it occurs to me that maybe the strategy from the previous cycle also played well to the location of the company and across the southeast as well, because for all of our talk over the last decade about, and for the nation's talk and the government's talk about balancing development in the regions, that's a promise that has 100% not been delivered on. We know the investment is nowhere close to balanced across the region, and I'm not talking private investment, I mean state investment, strategic investment, infrastructure. It's been a massive failing, and a promise not delivered on. So would you think, if we are looking at another downward cycle, might the strategy of BHA extend beyond the southeast? Would you look towards into the Midlands? Would you look towards the west coast?
Yeah, definitely. There's opportunity out there, and if the numbers stack, I think the old saying goes, if it makes money, it makes sense. And if there's opportunity out there, and that our end clients, being the housing bodies, have an appetite, like, we will travel, and we will deliver those. If to do that, and for it allow us to I know we touched on it before we went to record, but to do that, we have to be sure that we have our supply partners and subcontract partners deliver in those areas. Because when we look at the model has changed, and rightly so, in construction over the number of years. It's not a subcontractor, it is a partner, and for us to deliver what we want to deliver to an end client, we need strong partners in those. So that's probably the limiting factor, and we're growing our supply chain to extend beyond that, beyond our kind of traditional base. So definitely, if there is opportunity, we will look at it. So that's probably where some of our growth will come, opening up new regions.
Shane, I am so encouraged to hear you say that, because in earlier conversation, you talked about how you want your supply chain, your subcontractors, you want them to do well financially. And you said to me that might be counterintuitive. And my response was that it's absolutely not counterintuitive. We should, every good contractor who wants to grow and scale should understand how, well, they will know how difficult it is to get a really good, tight supply chain in place. You should absolutely want that supply chain to grow and scale with you, because it saves you having to look to extend your supply chain. And there are so many reasons why contractors should prioritize making sure their supply chain does well. And it's something that, again, I think we've possibly failed on, and we can blame our contracts, but actually there was a culture behind that that I do believe is changing. But in the marketplace, and when you're dealing with your contractors and bringing in, extending your supply chain, because obviously you're going across different counties. So I presume that means you looking to extend your supply chain quite regularly in different counties. What kind of resistance do you come up against?
Okay, just to go back a step there, when you mentioned about culture, and culture is used a lot. Like when we're looking at our supply chain, like we want our culture to extend beyond the BHA employees and to be our supply chain and subcontractors to be an extension of that culture, and they need to understand us. Do we find resistance to bring in new people? Probably not as much. We're recognized as a good company to work for, and word of mouth does help with that. And maybe that's something that will improve the ease of getting subcontractors and suppliers as the market probably slows down a small bit. That there is more capacity in the market, and while we're still steaming ahead with our residential projects, that it may be easier to bring people on board. But for us to bring someone on board, they need to, we've invested a lot in recently in technology, and that extends beyond us into our supply chain. So for us to onboard them, they need to go through a pre-qualification process where to make sure that they're able to comply with standards that we set ourselves. So that's important also.
That is important, but do you help them get there? Or do you
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
talk to me about how that happens, because again, I think this is a real opportunity to build trust, build relationships, ensure that the right technology is being deployed across projects. So how do you do that in practice?
So it's like as technology comes into play more and more in construction, there is a risk that we're going to lose some really skilled contractors, good contractors, reliable, and that have been loyal to the like of BHA for the last 30 years. And the risk is as we drive towards technology that we're going to lose them because they may not be able to comply. So just enforcing something and letting them sink or swim isn't what we're trying to do. So we have a dedicated person. We recently brought in a system called Procore for managing all our drawings or quality or snags, observations on site. So we have a dedicated person who is both for BHA and also our subcontractors. So by all means, we'll bring them along, train them up. We have a very hands-on health and safety department. We don't believe the day of the health and safety man coming in, shouting and putting people off site is gone. There has to be a mentorship role on that and assisting people to come along on that journey with them because that and by all means, if people need to be upskilled separately, we'll advise and suggest what they should be doing that they can improve their business. So it touches back on we want our subcontractors to be happy subcontractors and also making a profit by working with us, and that's important.
And Shane, because I'm always curious and I have a bias towards technology, are you willing to share your tech stack? Because actually we're working on a bit of a project behind the scenes that we'll absolutely share with the industry, which is actually to build the picture of what the tech stack of a contemporary Irish contractor looks like. So are you willing to share yours?
Yeah, I suppose if you had asked that question this time last year, our tech stack was Excel and Dropbox. So
do you know what? Actually, so many people say that to me in a way that it's almost like derogatory about Excel. And I think, years ago, we only thought of Excel as a spreadsheet, but it's not. It is a software. Like Excel is a software. So actually, if you're using Excel right, it actually underpins an awful lot of the technology that we still use today. So we have to stop. I think we have to stop making it sound like Excel is kind of old hat technology, because actually it is a software system. It's not just a database, but you just need to be using it and incorporating it and layering it to draw the insights that you need. But sorry, go ahead with your tech stack.
You would get along very well in our commercial department because if you say anything negative towards Excel, it's a major black mark. No, look at we have mapped out for earlier in the year where we want to go technology wise. And that's not a 12-month plan. That's a 36-month plan because by everything has to be tried and tested before we put it out onto a job, onto a live project. And the reason being, you cannot interfere with the customer experience first off, and the employee experience. So so we're dropping in a set period, we're dropping different technology, and everything builds back to each other. Everything needs to be integrated. Probably the first big step with that was introducing Procore. We recognized that we had a bit of a risk where it came to Dropbox of different people having access, and were they working off of the most recent drawings, was probably a big thing. With Procore, the layer of the drawings where it's always your most recent. So, you're working towards a single source of truth, which is very important for us. When it came to health and safety, going back to we wanting our subcontractors being happy, we recognize that a lot of time is being wasted, or maybe waste is not the right word, but could be utilized better by a subcontractor coming to site, spending time every morning filling out various different health and safety documents. So we one of the first companies in Ireland to integrate to implement a system called One Breadcrumb, which has a Procore integration. So the overall process of what we're trying to do is have your project management, have your commercial, have your tendering, and also your subcontractors feeding into one single source of truth.
Very good. And in terms of rolling that out across the supply chain, how did you find, I suppose, the reception to tech? I mean, was there a willingness to adapt?
Okay, there was by some individuals and some companies, and there will always be some natural resistance. But when we looked at and this is not a sales pitch for Procore or any other system we're using, we looked at usability and understood that, as we mentioned about some of our subcontractors, some of our employees weren't as tech savvy as the younger guys or that had come out and were growing up around it. So we looked at stuff that was intuitive, and after a while of and when I'm talking a while, I'm talking 6-8 weeks. People have really taken to it and understand, and it's funny because I was involved from the very start of this, and now you have people that were original resistors are now coming to you when you visit site and saying, "Oh, did you know I could do this or that?" So look, that's the way of the world. We're embracing technology, and it's not technology for technology's sake. It's about improving the overall product for internal staff, external staff, and obviously the end client.
Yeah, it's funny. We've been involved in innovation, and particularly tech innovation, and with startups for years. And there's a huge difference between, say, the technology for prop tech and for property and for, say, managing real estate and for construction. And in prop tech, there was definitely a huge amount of tech for the sake of tech. In construction, that just doesn't happen.
No.
With low margins comes a need to prove itself. But also, I think construction by its very nature, there's an understanding that stuff does have to be tested. So there's a slight patience there. So if the business cost, if the business case can be made for it, people will try it. And if they try it and it achieves the time or cost savings that's needed, or improves the safety standards or quality across site, then actually that technology will be adopted. And so it's been a really fundamental change, a difference I've seen across technology for the built environment. And I would say the construction has done really well on that. And what's interesting is that I always pull people up if they talk about an older generation or anything like that, because actually what I truly believe in construction is that most people who go into construction would be quite entrepreneurial and innovative at heart. And so actually technology is just the latest tool. So if they're innovative in the 1970s, they're going to be innovative today. If they always want the best tool to do their job, and technology is just the latest iteration of that. So for me, it's never about the technology. It's always about the culture.
It is. And I think when people get the message that you're bringing in a software, you're bringing in technology to make their life easier. And when that penny drops, but as you touched on, construction software is a very harsh testing ground, because if it doesn't serve a purpose or doesn't make someone's life easier, it will be mothballed, and whoever's brought that in will be accountable for it, because it's so fast paced, and there's so many people feeding into it. If it's not intuitive or not a benefit, it won't stay.
You know, that is such a true observation. And in fact, one of the things we've seen is that for prop tech, a lot of the technology was consumer led. So people who had a problem when dealing with something about their property, whether it was buying, renting, whatever it is, when it was consumer led, it was much more likely to fail. What we see in construction that it's almost always industry led. So it's almost always somebody who has worked in it, experienced a problem, developed a solution for it, and then rolled out that solution. And it makes a huge difference actually in terms of the usability of it. I'm conscious of your time today, but there's something that I really did want to talk to you about today, because we've talked about the nature of the business of construction changing. And part of that is, you refer to, I would imagine 15, 20 years ago, if we were having the conversation about the types of schemes you're delivering, we would have just said residential, whereas now we can see that actually the model of delivering social housing is quite different to rental or to residential that's not PRS. And that has been a big differentiator in the market, and it's definitely shaped how we're delivering residential. But delivering residential, as you rightly touched on earlier, is not about delivering units. It's not even about delivering the individual homes. It is the community and the placemaking element. And I think in Ireland, we have not embraced the concept of social value as much as, say, it has been in the UK. However, we know that's starting to change. We're seeing it starting to creep in on tenders. So, and obviously being a developer and contractor, you have almost a responsibility not just to follow that, but really to lead it. So you might just talk to me about the placemaking approach by BHA and the team there.
I suppose the social value that we have given is like we started from a rural base, so the employment we gave to a local area through booms and recessions was probably a social value before we actually even realized there was such a thing. So look, the value that we bring, like we're working in various communities, as I said, 6, 7 different counties we're working in, and we always work towards an end in mind. It's not just units, put them up and get on to the next one. It is that we have a housing crisis, and there is something that we're playing our part into it. Like we're touching on 350 units per year, which is a lot of families that are having new beginnings and steady foundations to build and flourish in. So that's something that's not lost on us. We're also like we need to protect the environment that we're working in. So the owner Brendan has kind of this year, it's like we want to test our systems against what we're doing. So we're halfway or we're well down the road of getting ISO 9001, 14001, 45001. So they are all the important things. Like and the value for the employees that we have. Like we're nothing without our supply chain, as you touched on, but definitely nothing without the people that we work with and in our environment. That they're an extension. It's a family-owned business, and they are an extension of that family. And that's our view on social impact. That we're providing employment, we're providing much needed housing, and we're doing good in the environment that we're working in.
Yeah, and I know we've spoken previously about sustainability, and we don't have a huge amount of time to cover it today, but I know that that's a huge part of your social value offering there as well. But just again, I'm conscious of time, but I can't let you go because you lead the fit out team. So in terms of trends that you've seen, how has that changed over the past number of years? So, when you're in terms of when we're looking at fit out, there's been massive trends. So, for example, across the commercial side, I know BHA are also looking at new verticals in terms of data centers and clean rooms, and that's a very specialized approach. But say, like dealing with your residential projects, what kind of trends are you seeing?
Look, the fit out market right now, it's very up and down. In a previous life, I focused predominantly on corporate office. If that was the strategy today in today's market, I think we'd have a lot of headaches looking at it. Our fit out, we've delivered for BHA a lot of corporate office, but where we've probably specialised and have it done a lot is is in the hospitality sector. Like the most recent is the Hyde, which is just recently opened. So that becomes like where that comes from. A lot of long-term relationships. But where do we see that fit out market leading? The life sciences is going to continue to be strong. A commercial office will rebound, but whether that's in the next 12 months, only time will tell. We're looking at a number of hotels currently for some repeat clients that we see that are looking at refurbs. So, we would see a lot of our fit out budget coming from hotel refurbs and data centers, whether it be Ireland or further abroad. That's where we see where a lot of our income is going to come from on the fit out sector.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you describe the life sciences sector as strong, because we know FDI has really come under pressure, and the forecasts that are being put out appear to be pulled back over the next number of years. So that feels like a trend that we don't know how that's going to play out as yet. But in terms of, say, the clients you're dealing with, what is their sentiment on the marketplace?
But so far, it hasn't been overly negative. They still have their plans that have been in the pipeline. So look, for us, that's although it may not be as buoyant as before, what we have with our select kind of repeat clients and where we have strong relationships, we see that boosting our pipeline, although others may not have those same connections.
Yeah, very good. And I suppose final question, I know we touched on it earlier, when we talked about the BHA pipeline, but again, we know we're in challenging time, and I understand you're in a strong position there in terms of the pipeline that you have, but what are you expecting to see across the wider market over the next kind of 12 to 24 months?
When it comes down to when things tighten, it's going to be every man for themselves. We broke the 45 million euro turnover this year. We would envisage that that's going to be above the 50 mark, 52 the next year. So, like for ourselves, we're not worried about the wider market as such. We're worried about the market we operate, and we're worried about the clients that we look after, and that's what really wider than that. It may be difficult for some, and I think people's cash reserves are going to come into question, and that's important. And one of the things that we're very, very strong, we have strong cash reserves. We're in a lot of cases we have a strong funding pipeline as well. So we'll worry about what we can control.
Well, listen, that's good to hear, but let's see if we can spread those opportunities. The 8 sites that you have in planning, are they all in counties where you're currently operating, or are you looking to expand the supply chain opportunities?
No, the majority of them are in, by nature, are where we're already operating. We are, spreading our wings into Tipperary. We've one in Cork, so there is that bit of a creep on our geography, and that's how probably we'll do it. That will creep further and further, and bring our supply chain along that journey with us.
Very good. And I suppose I would just do a final reminder to people that you have referred to BHA aggressively looking to acquire sites right now. So that might be an opportunity that somebody listening in today might take you up on. And if they do, the very best of luck to them. Shane, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and so forthcoming, sharing information about things like the tech stack, because we want to get as much information out so that when best practice is being established, that actually the gap between the early adopters and those who are just struggling to come to terms with it, that hopefully we can help bridge that gap in some way. So sharing information is quite genuinely the best way we know how to do that. So thank you so much for your time today. That was Shane. You're very welcome. Thank you. That was Shane Curran, Managing Director of Interiors at BHA Construction. My thanks to show producer Carol Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media for sound. Also, my thanks to Place Engage for making these conversations possible. And as always, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio.com.